Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is CJ the Populist New Yorker, and today we're going to be continuing our red to blue, blue to red state series by looking at the state of Georgia. Now, Georgia was one of the surprise flips in the 2020 election. It was a state that was supposed to be close, but ultimately was expected to go to Donald Trump narrowly, even by the polling aggregates around Election Day, although some did have Joe Biden up. But ultimately, we saw Georgia that flipped for the first time since the 1992 election of President Bill Clinton. And it went to Joe Biden by only around 0.2%. But the state has changed a whole lot in just the past 20 years. This is a Georgia county map by margin of each of the counties from the 2000 election, comparing the 2000 and 2004 election. As you can see, most of Democratic support is focused in what's called Metro Atlanta, which I think is basically these three counties. And then you have suburban Atlanta, which is around, although maybe they're both Metro Atlanta. I don't really know. Either way, Fulton County, DeKalb County, and Clayton County right here were safe blue counties in the 2000 election. The surrounding counties were also solidly red. These were suburban counties. Gwinnett County, Cobb County, Forsyth County, all up here. Henry County, all of these areas that, if we look at 2020, are now very, very blue counties, were once safe red, and it was only back in 2000 that this was the case. You have Clark County, which is home to Athens, a college town, only a likely blue county in the 2000 election. That county is beyond safe blue. It's almost as blue as Atlanta itself. And, of course, you see a lot of Republican support focused in the southeast and northern Georgia. This was sort of the height of the realignment in the state, where rural areas were kind of maxing out for Republican support around 2000, 2004, and the rest of the county, same with suburban Georgia. Republican support is basically maxing out in 2000 and 2004, and then as 2008 comes along, 2012, Republican numbers start to collapse because you've hit the apex of a trend starting to go in the other direction. So we can compare this map to where we have 123 safe, likely, or lean Republican counties, 24 safe, lean, or likely Democratic counties, and 12 swing counties, to the map of 2016-2020, where we have very few actual swing counties. These counties here, one of them being Burke County, which actually is one of the few counties in Georgia that went blue in 2016 and voted red in 2020. Of course, something you'll notice is that all of these suburban counties that once were formerly safe Republican are now safe Democratic. And you even have this county over here, Fayette County, which was safe red back in 2000, basically on the cusp of flipping, probably within the next cycle or so. So this is basically, we had the inflection point back in 2004 where Republican support was really maxed out in the state of Georgia. And ever since then, Democratic support has been rising. And as of 2020, there's no sign at all that this momentum is going to change. We're going to look at the precinct results later on in this video, and you're really going to see that these areas have gotten blue so drastically, so quickly. So again, most of the focus here, I think Metro Atlanta is 60% of the state's entire population and is now solidly Democratic. So at this point, it's almost impossible, well, not impossible, but it will soon be impossible for the rest of Georgia to outvote the urban centers. Macomb is safe blue now, wasn't safe blue in 2000. Savannah is safe blue now. Savannah was actually swing in 2000. Actually went to Bush in the 2000 election very narrowly. So we have a lot of population centers that were once in play or slightly Democratic that are now going to Democrats by 30, 40 points. Georgia, as of right now, is the second domino to fall for Republicans in the South. The first one being the state of Virginia, which, we're going all over the place here. Virginia was the first domino to fall in the South. The South had been essentially solidly Republican since the election of Ronald Reagan in 1980. Virginia was the first domino to fall. Interestingly enough, someone in the comments pointed this out on one of the videos, but Virginia was one of the first states in the solid South to actually start voting Republican. I think as early as the 20s, but really with Eisenhower. And now we're seeing the opposite effect, where now it's one of the first states to vote Democrat. Then we have Georgia, And, North Carolina is effectively a lean red swing state. The only safe Republican state-ish is really South Carolina here. Florida is lean Republican now, but Georgia is really the next domino to fall in the South as the South grows rapidly in population. The demographics change rapidly in terms of racial demographics, urban versus rural, that sort of thing, drastically changing the face of the South and would naturally change its electorate too. Now, if we look at the political party strength table from Wikipedia for Georgia, Georgia throughout most of the state's history has been a solidly Democratic state. Going back to the end of the Civil War to basically the 1960s, where you start to see some Republicans getting elected to statewide office. These were basically Republicans that were opposed to things like integration, things that the Democratic Party was supporting in Georgia at the time. So starting in 1964, Georgia votes Republican, and besides Jimmy Carter and the rare instance with Bill Clinton, which was a fluke essentially, Georgia has stayed Republican until the 2020 election, where Georgia very narrowly went to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Also, we saw Georgia have 2 Republican senators for most of the 21st century, and that, of course, has changed with the election of Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff in the 2021 special elections. So now Georgia went from having 2 Republican senators to 2 Democratic senators in one election. You compare that to a state like Arizona, a state that's also gone from solidly Republican to now purple-leaning Democrat. That took a 2-year change from 2018 to 2020 to get 2 Democratic senators in Arizona. Georgia, it happened in the same night. So that really goes to show you symbolically how fast this state has been changing. And I reckon to bet a lot of these incumbent Republicans, Brian Kemp, Brad Raffensperger, they're probably going to lose their re-elections in 2020 based on these trends. That's not coming from a bias or anything like that. I think at this point, it really is, the math is going to be against them in those elections. So again, looking at the recent runoff elections, Jon Ossoff won by 1.2 percentage points. He outperformed President Biden in that regard, and Warnock won his special election by 2 points. Now, these special elections were triggered because Georgia has a runoff system where a candidate has to get over 50% of the vote in order to be elected. So neither Perdue nor Kelly Loeffler met that threshold, so their races were brought to a runoff, and they both lost as a result. David Perdue got 49.7% in his Senate race, if we look at the original results here. Oh no, they have the specials now, but they should have the originals, because David Perdue, quote-unquote, won, not by Georgia standards, but he did technically win the first time around, but since he didn't hit 50%, he ended up losing his seat. So that's something, an interesting thing about the Georgia runoff system there. One of the biggest reasons, I think, for the special election loss for Republicans is mainly due to the divided front, the division in the Republican Party that was existing at the time. I think also the second biggest factor is the Democrats' visceral hatred for Mitch McConnell, and taking away the majority from him was a prime goal for a lot of people coming out to vote in these elections. But even with that being said, though, it is remarkable that just 2 months after November 2020, an election with super, super high turnout, we want to go to the presidential, that these 2 Democrats outperformed Joe Biden in places like, the northern part of Georgia. David Perdue actually did better than Donald Trump in places like Gwinnett County, Cobb County, suburban, old-fashioned Republican counties. He did better in those areas. The problem was that he did worse in the rural parts, the northern parts of the states. These counties were bluer in 2021, and ultimately those 1-point swings against, comparing these counties, White County, 16% for Joe Biden, 16.7% for Jon Ossoff. These small bumps in Democratic support was enough for them to ultimately win the state by an even larger margin than Joe Biden, even with places like Gwinnett County. Now, Gwinnett County is the exception. Gwinnett County did get a lot bluer, but Cobb County overall was slightly redder. This is a county that John Ossoff won by 12 points. Warnock won by around 13, almost 14 points. So again, the suburban counties like Cobb and such, they do slightly better, but it's the northern part and the southern part of the state. It's the Republican areas where turnout was more depressed, where these Democrats really won their races. Now, we looked at the 2020 election, but we can compare that. First we'll look at the precinct map, and then we'll compare it to 2016. This is the Georgia precinct map. If we do the change from 2016, this is where the shift happened. It wasn't in Atlanta itself. It wasn't in DeKalb itself. It was everywhere outside of those areas, particularly in places like Forsyth County, Cobb County. In fact, let's zoom out enough so we can see. Yeah, Forsyth going 14 points more Democratic. Cherokee County going 11 points more Democratic. Cobb 12 points more Democratic. Gwinnett 12. That's what did it. That's what did it, because the truth is Trump won this state by 5.2% in 2016. 5.1, sorry. And he only lost places like Cobb and Gwinnett by 6 points and 2 points respectively. And then we compare that to 2020, where he's losing these counties by 12 points. Well, no, we got to do the actual results. Losing these counties by 14, 18 points. And just, compare this to the 2000 map. These counties are safe red in 2000. That is no longer the case. The population in Metro Atlanta is exploding. So, unless a massive shift in the electorate happens or the Republicans can do more to court voters, Georgia is a gone state. It's going the way of Virginia. Virginia was a state flipped in 2008. The Republicans had a fluke victory in 2009 that couldn't be replicated in 2013, in 2017, and probably in 2021 too. I'll be making a video on that though, because that is a little bit different of a dynamic. But essentially, once states like this go blue, they don't go back for a very long time. And that's probably what we're going to see in the state of Georgia. This was once a solidly Republican state, voting for Republicans by 15 points, 12 points, even as recently as the Obama era, voting for Mitt Romney by around 8 points. And again, we can look at Gwinnett and Cobb County. These aren't safe Republican counties, although Cobb is. Gwinnett is a likely Republican county. But, we have places like Henry County going to Romney by 3, goes to Biden by 20. That's a gigantic shift. Trump getting 48,000 votes. What did Romney get? 43,000. No, 46. So this really is the effect that's being replicated across the country, in that suburban voters in a lot of these areas are fleeing the GOP in favor of Democrats, probably because of Trump. I think a lot of it is personality and rhetoric based, less so than policy based. I think if Trump was actually measured, now, if he was measured on policy alone, I think in general the American electorate would have a more favorable opinion of him. But due to things like divisive rhetoric, that tends to not really be the case. Mean tweets at 4 a.m. and stuff really is something that turns off suburban voters. And that's, there's no clearer example of that than this. Douglas County, 61-36, only going to Obama by 3 points. So, looking at the shifts from 2012, this was the last time we really saw a lot of Georgia shift more Republican. If we look at 2016, the southern part shifts more Republican, but the places where the people are, the places where it matters in terms of state elections, they're going a lot more Democratic. Not to say that rural areas don't matter, though, but they have less of an impact. And, of course, if we look at the shifts from 2020... gigantic shifts. Some of these counties going as much as almost 20 points in favor of the Democrats. And there's no opposite trend for the GOP. And again, this is just emblematic of the suburban trends we've been seeing, the demographic changes we've been seeing around the country. This is going to continue in other states. It's going to move over to states like South Carolina. It's going to move over to states like Texas. states like North Carolina eventually. Unless the GOP can really change the course, change the narrative, or appeal to more voters, essentially. Because right now, it does not look good for them in states like Georgia. That's not to say that Republicans are losing everywhere, though. They've certainly gained ground in places like Ohio. West Virginia, they've really solidified. Indiana, they've solidified. Florida, they've gained ground. North Carolina, they've managed to hold on to. Iowa, they've gained in. They've effectively got those states on lock. But the GOP problem, really, and I'll probably make a video on this in the future, is that the states that are trending away from them are the states with most of the people. States like Texas, states like, well, not really Florida so much, but Florida's still kind of up in the air, more so. States like Georgia, North Carolina, they're holding on to, but states like Arizona, too. So that really does become their problem, but again, this video is just mostly to focus on the state of Georgia itself, but we went from a solidly Republican state back in 2000, back during the Bush era, to a completely purple state. Effectively a state now where I think in 2022, my honest opinion is that the Democrats have the advantage. They have a fractured Republican Party. They have Brian Kemp, an unpopular governor. They have Brad Raffensperger, somebody who's been vilified by most of the National Republican Party. So even if he does win his primary, there's no way he wins a general. So that's just kind of the predicament the GOP finds himself in the state of Georgia as of now. But ultimately, we will see how the 2022 results pan out, how 2024 pans out. But right now, Georgia is effectively a completely purple state, if not a tilt blue state. But to give Republicans the benefit of the doubt, I'll say it's a purple state as of this video. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you found this video informative. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment down below your thoughts. As always, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.